Thank you. So this is Planning Committee. It's Thursday, the 14th of December. Season's greetings to everybody. I hope you're happy and healthy at the moment. Readiness for Christmas. So today's meeting. This is, as ever, a public meeting and members of the public and press are permitted to report on the proceedings. Reporting includes filming, photographing and making an audio recording and providing commentary on proceedings. Please note this meeting is recorded and streamed live. These recordings are published on the relevant meeting page of the Council's website. By choosing to attend this public meeting, you are deemed to have given your consent to being filmed or recorded and for any footage to be broadcast or published. If the alarm sounds, the premises must be evacuated immediately. Do not spend time collecting personal belongings. All escape routes, emergency escape routes, are clearly signed. Once you have left the building, the assembly point is the High Street, opposite the Guildhall, and members and speakers are please reminded to use their microphones when speaking. Thank you. Okay, Margaret, do we have any apologies or substitutions, please?
Yes, Chair. We have Councillor Riaz for Councillor Udall, and we have Councillor Bissett for Councillor Round, and Councillor Cleary has a prior engagement, and if he doesn't get to the meeting, he's given his apologies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Now, we're just going to go through the minutes of the last meeting. I would just like to thank the officers for these minutes because it was a very complicated item that we had last month, and I think it's been recorded extremely clearly. If I go through them one page at a time, we've got the first page, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. So we're all happy that those are a true reflection of what happened? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we've also got minutes from the Conservation Advisory Panel who met in October, October the 4th and the 1st of November. These minutes are just for noting. Has anybody got anything they wish to say about the minutes at all? No? No? Okay. And then I'd just like to thank the members who came on the site visit today. We went to the first item, which is the former Berwick Arms, and I think we found the site visit very useful. Do we have any public participation or representation, please, Margaret?
Yes, Chair, there's no public participation, but we do have public representation, and we have Roland Lee, who's the agent for the applicant for the Transmec UK Limited application, agenda item 9. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. So if you come up to the table at the beginning before the officer speaks when it comes to your item. Thank you. Okay, so if we go on to the first application then, this is the former Berwick Arms, and this is you, Laura. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for full planning permission for the change of use of number 250 Bath Road to a 3-bedroom HMO, use class C4. One of the site's former uses was a pub known as the Berwick Arms. However, in 2013, a planning permission was approved for its change of use to a 4-bedroom dwelling house. During the course of the application, the proposals have been revised from a proposed 8-bedroom sui generis HMO to a 3-bedroom C4 HMO. Initial concerns were raised by officers with regards to the proposed 8-bedroom HMO relating to parking and overdevelopment of the site. The agent then decided to amend the proposals to 3 bedrooms. This application was previously reported to Planning Committee on the 19th of October, when members decided to defer the application to allow a future meeting to allow a site visit to take place, along with the submission of a car parking management plan. This has now been submitted by the agent and the officer report has been updated accordingly. The car parking management statement can be found in Appendix 1 of the officer report. An additional condition has also been recommended by officers, condition 10. This just ensures compliance with the submitted management plan. I'll now just provide an overview of the site and the proposals for members. We're having a bit of problem with the clicker. As you will see, the first slide just shows the site's location on the corner of Bath Road and Stanley Street, outlined in red. And now just an aerial satellite perspective of the site with 250 Bath Road, the white painted building, as you can see there on the corner. Now looking at the site photographs, as you can see, 250 Berwick Street has a large frontage with bay windows to the ground floor. And the property also sits above street level from Bath Road. Now looking just down the side of the dwelling with its side elevation facing Stanley Street. Now looking down past the property along Bath Road. Now looking the other way back along Bath Road. Members will note that the area is primarily residential. There are, however, a number of business units opposite the dwelling, comprising of a tool and plant hire shop and a cooperative food store. Now looking again down Stanley Street with a closer view of neighbouring properties opposite to the side elevation of the dwelling. Now looking the other way back out towards Bath Road from Stanley Street, as you will see, the dwelling has been previously extended in the past to the rear. Now just looking towards the rear courtyard area. Now moving on to the existing and proposed block plans. As you will see, the vehicular parking and bin storage remains the same and consists of two parking spaces. The proposals, however, now include a cycle store for 6 cycles. The Highways Authority have been consulted and have commented on the revised 3-bedroom proposals, stating that they have no objections. Conditions, however, have been recommended to ensure that further details of the proposed cycle storage are submitted to ensure that they are secure and accessible. In summary, the submitted parking management statement just sets out that there will be a system in place to ensure that only tenants' vehicles can park within the spaces. It is advised that this will be controlled through the tenants being asked to provide vehicle registrations to a parking contractor employed by the managing agent, who will provide warnings and will be responsible for enforcing any unauthorised parking. It is also advised that signage will be displayed around the driveway that details the action that would be undertaken for unauthorised parking. Now looking at the existing and proposed ground floor plans, layout here remains the same. Now looking at the existing and proposed first floor plans, the layout here has changed from 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms to 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms and 2 storage rooms. Whilst not directly a planning consideration, the room sizes have, however, been reviewed and are in accordance with the Worcester City HMO licence requirements. The housing team have also been consulted and have raised no objections. Further clarification has been sought and provided by the agent to outline how the proposed storage rooms are proposed to be used. They have advised that the 2 first floor bedrooms are proposed to have the use of 1 storage room each, and the first floor rear bedroom is proposed to have storage in the loft above the bedroom. Each bedroom is also proposed to have 1 bathroom for their sole use, with the rear bedroom having benefit of its own ensuite. The application's been called in by Councillor Denham, and the concerns raised regarding the 8-bedroom HMO related to the principle of development, local objection, overdevelopment and the appropriateness of the use of the site as a HMO. Following the...
Yeah, I was noting that. We seem to have the 2 first floor plans on the slide rather than the ground and the first. It's not the ground and the first being shown on the plan. We've got 2 first floor plans.
That is correct.
Oh, so you're showing what the existing and proposed?
Yes.
So that's the difference. We're not showing ground and floor. It's the labelling of the rooms that is different. Yeah, it's the labels rather than any internal alterations. Yeah, okay, good.
Thank you. Following the amendment to the proposals to the 3-bedroom HMO, Councillor Denham has not raised any further concerns and considered that the revised proposals may be an improvement on the original application, but felt it would be useful to have the application and the relevant policy discussed by Planning Committee. As detailed in section 6 of the report, a number of neighbour objections have been received with regard to both the 8-bedroom and 3-bedroom proposals. A number of these also relate to the original concerns raised by Councillor Agar, but also relate to parking, highway safety, and existing and potential antisocial behaviour as a result of the use. The concerns have been considered throughout this report. Members will also see a list of the recommended conditions and advisory notes that have been recommended to mitigate any potential impacts of the HMO. These just relate to a condition restricting the addition of any new bedrooms within the HMO, further details of secure and accessible cycle parking, details of electric vehicle parking facilities, a condition removing permitted development rights from the property, condition requiring a HMO management plan, a condition requiring landscaping, and a condition to ensure compliance with the submitted parking management plan. The accompanying report and late paper, just the report, cover all the relevant issues and is taken as read. For the reasons set out in section 8 of the officer report, officers concluded that on balance, taking into account all material considerations, the submitted proposals are acceptable, subject to the recommended conditions set out in section 9 of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Laura. If I want to open the floor to questions, please, or comments. Councillor Bissett.
Thank you, Chair. I just find it a little worrying that these rooms that were originally bedrooms are now being called storage rooms, and they're just as big as they were before. They're exactly the same size. And although there's a condition stating that no more bedrooms will be added, I think it'd be quite hard for us to find out that those rooms are being used as bedrooms. So I'm uneasy about that.
Through you, Chair, if you're happy for me to comment on that. I think as we discussed last time, and I appreciate that you weren't here, so it's worth rehearsing that again. In terms of any additional bedrooms, it's proposed as a 3-bedroom HMO. Any additional bedrooms would require planning permission, and I appreciate that from an enforcement point of view that it may appear to be difficult to police. In terms of the licensing arrangement, the housing team have to license every HMO, and that ties in with the planning process. So the planning permission and the license go hand in hand. So if they've been granted planning permission for a 3-bedroom HMO, they will have a license for a 3-bed HMO, and that will be reviewed by the housing team. So there are 2 agencies that the council operate that will be checking this in terms of the HMO. And as we know, that if there are issues with neighbours in terms of additional numbers of people within there, it will be raised as a complaint and we will investigate. So we are quite comfortable. We wouldn't have recommended approval and subject to that condition if we didn't feel that it was enforceable.
Okay, I've got Councillor Riaz and then Councillor Amos, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, regarding this. I have got a note from Councillor Denham in terms of some of the concerns. I'm also the ward member for this patch currently until the new arrangements come in place. So I'd like to speak on both, if that's possible, please. The Stanley Street currently is now the only point of access on Bath Road for the whole of Cherry Orchard area, including St Mark's Close, which is as you can appreciate, is a lot of households. Since Greenway Drive got built, there's no access to the other end of Orchard Street off Bath Road. People coming in from town will not go down Greenway Drive and turn left at the bottom. Greenway Drive was built to improve access to Diglis water, which inadvertently reduces it for Cherry Orchard. And the additional parking on Stanley Street is generated by the day centre, of course, with the minibuses and St Mark's Church with a rare car park, and also the industrial units on Orchard Street. Now, those are the comments from Lynn. I'd like to add to that the pictures that we've been shown. There are a number of other businesses in there, in that vicinity. There's obviously the industrial estate, we've got a car showroom, we've got the day centre, and it is quite, members who know the area well, it neighbours Batton Hall. It is a pinch point with a number of, obviously, people working there. I mean, the alarm bells started ringing originally when it was an 8-bedroom HMO, to then reduce it to a 3-bedroom HMO. I mean, the alarm bells still ring. In terms of the amount of work that we'll have to do to convert it, will pretty much make it fit for purpose for a bigger HMO in the future. And even with those conditions, I'm not really satisfied that you know, potentially more than 3 people will be living in such a large property. In terms of that, residents have written into both Lynn and I and Atif regarding the pinch points. So currently, as it stands, we feel it's still not as an appropriate conversion for a HMO. We'd rather see it as a 2 separate flats for family use, which is the need within the city in terms of need for housing under our current conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riaz. Karen, from Highways' point of view, I wonder whether you could just set out what the parking measures are for the number of bedrooms for an HMO and for the family home, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you've already heard from, I know there is some concern in the size of the property, but as you've already heard from Mr. Round, from Laura, the application is for a 3-bedroomed HMO, and we have had to assess it on that basis that it is a 3-bedroom HMO. The property is currently a 4-bedroomed dwelling with 2 parking spaces. Under our Streetscape Design Guide, a 4-bedroom dwelling requires 3 parking spaces, so it currently is deficient in 1 space. In terms of a 3-bed HMO, that would require 3 parking spaces. So it's got 2 parking spaces. Again, it's a deficiency of 1 space. So actually, we are saying that currently there is a parking equivalent with what they currently have and what the proposal is. So on that basis, we haven't recommended that there is any reason that we could refuse this. We do accept that the area is a busy area. Bath Road in particular is busy throughout the day, not just at peak time. So it is a busy area. But what we're looking at here is a 3-bedroom HMO that could attract 3 potential cars into the area, rather than, you know, a significant amount of the NPPF. Paragraph 111 of the NPPF states that we can only refuse planning applications on highway grounds if the impact is severe, and we couldn't really argue that the impact of this would be severe on the existing network.
Thank you, Karen. I've got Councillor Amos, Cross, and then Agar, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair, May I prefer to say, thanks, Chair. I think what Councillor Bissett and Councillor Riaz have said is absolutely spot on. Few things are certain in this world, but one thing that is certain is that this is not going to remain as a 3-bedroom HMO for very long. I do find it extraordinary that it's come down from 8 to 3, and there seems to be a lot of space left in this property. Now, I wonder why that space has been left in the property, other than that it's going to be extended bit by bit. So it'll just be one, and then it'll come back, possibly here, if we know about it. Oh, it's only a very marginal change. So then we'll grant that. And then perhaps a year later, if we find out again, it'll be just one more. So by accretion, they will get up nearer to the 8 that they actually want rather than the 3 that they've asked for. And that bothers me very much. So I'd like to know if the officers could tell us why they've only gone for a 3 as opposed to more when the property really lends itself to that. Because if they can't answer that, which is understandable, then my suspicions are aroused. On the question of parking, I was going to let Miss Hanchus off this afternoon, but she made one statement which is fatal, because she's already admitted in this application that the property, 3-bedroom HMO, is 1 space deficient. So are we going to allow a property to convert to a 3-bedroom HMO knowing that there's already a deficiency in parking? And of course, the difference between a dwelling house and HMO is that it's more than likely with an HMO, given these rooms are of a reasonable size for once, you could have 6 adults, and you've got 2 parking spaces. This area, I'm sorry I couldn't be on the site visit, but I know this area very well. Used to be on my COVID walking route. But that is a very busy area. And the idea that you can have any more cars there when we're already admitting there is 1 deficiency, it might be no worse than the current situation, but things are getting worse with more and more traffic coming along there. So I'm very concerned that there is a deficiency already, and with 6 adults, as there will be, and probably a few others as well in there unauthorised, I suspect, where are the cars going to go? We saw with the yellow lines, the shop, it's very busy as well. So could we please just clarify or answer those points if possible? Because one is concern and one is practicalities.
Through you, Chair. I think they're very sensible questions and very, very useful for the discussion. In terms of the first question, the reason that the applicants have gone for a 3-bedroom HMO is from the advice of the Highway Authority and from officers that based on the amount of amenity space that is provided and based on the car parking arrangement, that is the maximum amount of bedrooms that the council would accept. So no more. 3 bedrooms is exactly what we would get. And you'll notice that in condition 6, we have proposed to remove permitted development rights. So there will not be able to be an extension without the authority of this council, and it would be a matter for us to consider. Officers consider very strongly, and I'm fully supportive of this, that no further extensions would be suitable on this site because of the amount of space that is there. And we would not support any additional bedrooms on this site. So a 3-bedroom property in the format that it is exactly what is proposed. From what members are looking at is exactly what's proposed. And that's what members need to consider in terms of whether they feel that's acceptable or not. In terms of the deficiency in parking, and Councillor Amos is correct, as have been advised by the Highway Authority, there is a deficiency in parking, but that exists at the moment, and what members are having to consider is whether there is any change that would cause a severe highway impact. What the Highway Authority and officers are advising is that it is a status quo. It's exactly the same situation in terms of the demand for parking. So hopefully that's helpful in terms of the answers to the questions.
Thank you, Chair. If I may just come back on that. Thank you, Mr. Rao. Those answers were helpful. But again, can I just press you a bit more? Because we all know about conditions. You can put a condition on and you can come to a meeting shortly down the road and get the condition removed or amended or changed. And that frequently happens. It always concerns me because I think invariably the conditions are changed or removed. And I don't know whether it will come back to committee or whether it will be done by delegated power of the officers. I would suggest that if it's a condition, it should come back to committee so that the committee consider it again. But obviously, it would need a member to call it in to have that. And the other question is, and it's a very important question I've raised before. It is about enforcement. The condition to enforce what you're suggesting, I would support. My concern is, I don't think we've always had a reputation for being as tough on enforcement as we could or should be. So how is that, and this of course will be the problem with HMOs, generally, isn't it? I mean, how does anybody enforce anything unless they stand outside watching people come and go? And I think on one occasion some housing officers did, but they were apparently all visitors or guests just staying for one night, that kind of nonsense. So how can we enforce it? Because you're quite right, we shouldn't put conditions on we can't enforce. So how can we enforce this condition?
Through you, Chair, the answer I provided to Councillor Bissett, I think, is probably exactly the same as I'll say again. We have the resource within the council, and yes, there may have been issues previously with enforcement. That is not the case now. We have the resource to be able to do that. We are being tough in terms of enforcement, particularly around conditions and HMOs. We have experience of both reporting from ward councillors and from members of the public in terms of HMOs, and we are dealing with breaches of conditions. So in terms of, is it enforceable? We would not have put it on if it wasn't enforceable. We believe that it is enforceable, and we will enforce on the basis and investigate. So I've got no concerns that we are putting something forward just as a SOP. This certainly is a robust position that we are taking as officers.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to say was after the site visit today, which I found very useful, we did note how close the bus stops are to the site. And with the additional cycle parking, actually, this is quite a sustainable location for people who don't want to own a car. I think that's a potential advantage to where the site is in the city. Okay, I've got Councillor Cross now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, before I start really with my sort of main points, addressing concerns, I feel personally confident that we do have a process that it relies upon policy, not just individual influence. So I think that's more robust, and with funding for planning enforcement and commitments towards planning enforcement, I feel a lot more reassured. That gives me a lot of reassurance. The other aspect, of course, is that there's another committee, the licensing relating to HMOs, I understand. So we have matters in place for the what if in future this changes. So it would be foolish for anyone to try to wing it, really, because action will be taken, I believe. Arising from the site visit today, which I found very useful, sort of a couple of things sprung to mind. The proposed cycle storage, where it's planned to be, and I didn't see it just from the plans, from the drawings, but seeing it in person, there's actually quite a ramp of about a foot for getting up to where the raised garden, where the proposed cycle storage would be. There's also a potentially sewerage or drainage access cover, which the challenge is being, at the moment it's grass. Part of the accessibility for the cycle storage would be that actually some people use bicycles as mobility aids. I think we need to be very tight, if we can, on our conditions about the accessibility and the security aspect of that. I note also the police comments about security relating to the locks. So I would like to see what was the police comments, if we can incorporate that as conditions. I think it's Euro profile type of locks on individual bedrooms, depending on what kind of entry system there is. So the other aspects, I don't know if we can condition, but the existing paving to the rear axis is very crumbly and broken up. It would be very nice to see it, or reassuring to see an improvement, just so that whether walking or cycling, that there's a more accessible, a better surface for people to walk on. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Cross, on page 18, there was some comment by County Highways, which is useful. It talks about a lockable purpose-built enclosure, with details so that each cycle space can be individually accessible for unrelated occupants of the HMO. I think that's really positive. And it also talks about a bound surface material, which suggests improvements to the access. But what can we do about the condition?
Through you, Chair, the officers obviously felt that cycling was important because as a condition 4 and as condition 8, which deals with cycling, I think that's a repetition which we probably need to address. If I can just draw you to condition 8, it talks about development hereby permitted should not be occupied until sheltered, secure and accessible cycle parking has been provided in accordance with details to be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. So before the change of use can take place, details have to be submitted in terms of the accessibility, so from the pavement, how they get into the site, how the cycle parking is going to be accessed, which is secure and sheltered. So there will need to be details of how they're going to ramp that, or they're going to grade it and deal with any drainage matters that are there. So condition 4 is probably superfluous, but condition 8 actually deals with exactly the point that you're raising.
Okay, I've got Councillor Agar and then Councillor Riaz and then to Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Are we concentrating just on questions still, or do you want to open the debate? Whichever.
I think we'll do either.
Okay, thank you. Returning, I think, first of all, then, to the question of enforcement. I mean, presumably you will be letting the enforcement regimes know of our concerns and asking them to keep a watching brief on this development. And of course, we know that we are required by law to trust our officers to do their jobs. So, you know, that for me is important. And I think we can certainly trust Mr. Round to let our enforcement teams know. You want to respond to that before I go on? Yeah, is that it?
That'd be helpful. Through you, Chair, I think it certainly is something that we can do. There is, if members are concerned in terms of the arrangements internally, there are conditions that could be framed to allow, require the developer to provide notice of, advance notice of prior to occupation, which will then give the opportunity for enforcement officers to go and visit the property to be able to see the internal arrangements. So if members felt sufficiently concerned that at the point of occupation there may be some issues, that could be a condition that is imposed. So it would require, say, 7 days or 14 days prior to first occupation, notice should be provided to the local planning authority of that occupation and allow access of officers at any reasonable times. And it gives us that opportunity. We don't have to do that, but it gives the opportunity for us to do that if members so wish to do that.
Right, if members agree, I think that would be an excellent thing to do. Yes?
I'm happy to support that.
The question about that, yeah. Thank you, Chair. So is that best done before occupation, or do we not want to go and have a look once people are in?
Through you, Chair, I mean, normally, prior to occupation, if it's 14 days, it will be as set up, so you will be able to see whether those rooms are set up. But what it does do is secure a stamp in time that officers will be able to say, this is how it was relayed. We will be able to take photographic evidence so that for any enforcement case that may come up in the future, it then gives a very definite provision that it was, the planning permission was implemented and that there wasn't a slip in time or trying to claim that it was lawful over a passage of time. So whilst, yes, we might be able to do going forward checks, the best time is at least we'll be able to see what fixtures and fittings. If it's a storage room, it needs to be laid out as a storage room and very clearly done in that way. So,
sorry, what does that look like?
well, I'm probably speaking slightly beyond my means, but in terms of what a storage room looks like, as I would expect it to look like, it would have no features for living, so it may not be heated, it may not have any wardrobe, built-in wardrobe. But those nuances, it's It's about how it's laid out. As long as it's in accordance with the approved plan, that's what we're asking officers to be able to check at that point in time.
Thank you. A few more comments. I think it's extremely beneficial that we've had a reduction in occupancy from 8 to 3 bedrooms, particularly as it's been informally in use as an HMO. And of course, this application enables us to regularise that situation and make sure that we just have what is proposed and what we have said agreed that is wanted. So the 3 bedrooms is excellent. The Article 4 direction is complied with, and that's our own policy. It's our own city's policy. It's not someone else telling us what to do. We have made the decision that we don't want more than 10% of properties within a 100-metre radius, to be HMOs. We know from this policy that there won't be more than 2 HMOs next to each other. It complies with that, so we're all right there. Thinking of the amenity of future occupiers. Now, we had this really useful definition of sustainability, and I've not seen one before, because there wasn't a definition of sustainability for a long time in planning. And if you look at page 15, you'll find this: meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And I thought, yes, that's a very interesting and useful, quite simple definition. And I think it does that. So if you start with things like the garden area, that's slightly over the requirement, it's satisfactory. Neighbouring amenity, it's proposed that we condition and enforce this property quite well. And there are conditions about management plans and so on. So I'm happy with that. I won't go on about the parking provision because we've dealt with that, I think, pretty thoroughly. The landscaping, well, that will be enhanced, and that's always good. And it's going to, the management of that will be kept up for 5 years, which is our standard procedure there. So that's okay. Waste provision's adequate. And I think when coming to a decision about all of it, the planning balance is what we're looking at, isn't it? We always need to balance the pros and cons. And I think now that we've actually had the opportunity to put enough conditions on to reassure ourselves about the occupancy and the fact that we can't do any more about the parking than is already there, because it's a neutral position, as Karen Hatchett has told us. I think all of that says to me that there are more pros than cons. So on balance, it's not what I wish or what my political preferences are. It's about, on balance, I think I'm going to have to approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I think that's really useful summary for everybody. Councillor Riaz, I've got you next, and then to Sarah.
Thank you. The first question I have is, how many people will be allowed to stay in each bedroom? And then I'll follow on with the points.
2 people in each bedroom.
So as I think my colleague has already alluded to, obviously that's 6 people, so there's an increase in there. I mean, what I can't really get my head around in this proposal is the starking lack of inefficiency in the use of space in what's being proposed and what is currently being used at. And sitting here as the chair of, with my other hat on as the chair of communities and looking at the housing problem within the issue, within the city and the need for obviously 3 to 4 bedroom housing. This, I feel, is a detrimental step backwards in terms of actually from what we need to what we're trying to achieve here. We're removing potentially a family from this property to go out and look elsewhere to counteract with that. So I believe that on balance of sustainability, that this isn't sustainable. This is actually a worsening of the situation than what currently is. So, I can't understand how officers have come to that conclusion in terms of it's not actually an improvement. It's not an improvement on the situation. It's worsening in terms of the number of people living in that property, the potential of then antisocial behaviour for in a HMO, as we understand, with local residents, and then to remove a family out of a 4-bedroom house already, to kick them out, to let it out as an HMO. How can that be an improvement?
Through you, Chair, just in response to that, I think personally I would wholeheartedly agree with the comments that you've made. But in terms of the planning aspects, we don't have a planning policy that restricts properties being converted into HMOs. We have a positive policy that allows for that. We also have a positive policy that allows for conversion of flats. What we have before us is a proposal. However inefficient that is, and we all may feel that it's inefficient, we have a planning proposal before us. And what we have to determine it is on planning aspects and planning grounds based on planning policies. We don't have any policies within the SWDP that restrict the conversion of 4-bedroom properties. However, we would like that to do and to retain those type of properties within the city and across citywide. I will shut up in a minute, but citywide, we have an issue that we have those type of properties that are departing, and yet, as Councillor Agar has mentioned, we have our own Article 4 that provides that restriction, whereas other parts of the countries don't. So, whilst there is a great deal of sympathy and the work that the Communities Committee and others that are doing in terms of trying to bring in more sustainable properties and the efficiency of use of properties is really, really good and really worthwhile, but from a planning perspective, when we come down to the exact planning application, we have no teeth or no policies to be able to resist that. So unfortunately, that's where officers have come from, not from a point of view of the moral perspective, but actually we've come from a planning perspective based on the planning policies.
Thank you. That's also extremely helpful. Councillor Sarah, please.
Thank you, Chair. So when we had our site visit today, we noticed some sort of drain cover in the place where the bikes are going to be. Excuse me. Oh, I'm very excited. We talked about perhaps having some condition or guidance or advice given to the developer to have look at the site maps, the underground services maps for that area that County Council keeps, because there might be all sorts of services under there that you wouldn't want to disturb, and I don't know how the bike store is going to be built, but I just think it's something that possibly should be noted.
And absolutely, and for those on site, we discussed the opportunities that would afford. Whilst Condition 8 does ask for details, I think if members so wish to add an additional informative note in terms of the services that are there, that it is required, and we could certainly do that and add a note in terms of services. So that would be an additional note too.
Okay, so has anyone got any other questions? Could anybody like to express a preference? I mean, I know, Pat, you have said that you're happy to support this application. Would anybody else like to comment? Either way, thank you. Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I echo the sentiments of Councillor Agar and feel that we have no other policies that can direct us to do otherwise, other than to support.
Yeah, is that a proposal or a seconder?
Happy to second.
Happy to second.
Through you, Chair, if I can just clarify, in terms of any proposal and seconding, that would be for the deletion of Condition 4, which is superfluous, which would be an additional condition in terms of notification of occupation and providing access, and for an additional informative note on services. I think that's correct.
Any other comments from anybody? Anybody? Yeah, because we've got a proposer and a seconder. So do we want to go to the vote
In a second.
after?
The one thing I ought to clarify is that the proposal is changed, so it would be delegated authority to approve to the Director of Planning and Governance for those additional conditions and notes to be agreed with the Chair and Vice Chair prior to decisions, so that at least Councillor Lewin and Councillor Agar get to see the proposed conditions before they are submitted. So it would be delegated authority to approve, and that should be the proposal.
Right.
And of course, including the informative note.
Exactly.
Yeah. Councillor Sarah.
I just wanted to add, I support Councillor Riaz's view that losing a family home to an HMO is a poor return. But I have to acknowledge that we probably don't have grounds not to approve it. Yeah. Once again.
Thank you. I think we could all probably agree with that. With the housing shortage across the city, it is a real shame. Councillor Cross and Councillor Arcott.
Thank you, Chair. To pick up on that issue, is that something that could be fed into the SWDP review process during consultation?
Through you, Chair, it's as Sean's just mouthed to me, it's a little bit late, but it has been submitted to the Secretary of State, so those matters have probably passed.
Yeah, Councillor Alcott.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Just very briefly, I echo the sentiments of the room, but I think as long as we have national planning policy as it is, quite often we sit here and we're unable to enact what we want to because of the framework around us. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. So if I've got no further comments, shall we move to a vote? Yeah, people are happy to move to a vote? Okay. So can I see a show in hands in favour of the proposal to support the application? Okay. Votes against, please. And that's no abstentions, isn't it? So that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the second item, which is the Transmec property on Wainwright Road. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. Lee, and take your place, and we'll have Paul doing the presentation first, and then you'll have your chance to speak, and you'll have is it 5 minutes? Yes, 5 minutes, and I'll do like a bit of a, when you get about 30 seconds towards it. Okay, all right. So Paul.
Just waiting for the PowerPoint to catch up. It's definitely on Margaret. There. Has that moved? No. You did that. Just bear with us, members. Will. Right, it's amazing what you can do once the technology works. So, members, this application relates to an industrial unit located on Wainwright Road, Worcester, situated to the north of Warndon. It is currently occupied by Transmec, a storage and distribution company. The building was constructed in the late 1980s with a small extension to the rear, being granted in 2002. The site is surrounded by industrial uses within the Shire Business Park, and the Waterside Park Caravan Park is to the northeast. To the north runs the Worcester and Birmingham Canal, which you can see highlighted in sort of orange, which is a conservation area and wildlife site, and also includes the Tolladine Bridge, which is a locally listed building. And you can see the Tolladine Bridge highlighted and ringed in yellow. Just some photos of the site. This is the existing photo which was provided by the applicants. I can't take any credit for that one. This is an aerial street view looking at Wainwright Road, and you have the island looking towards the site. And this is an aerial photo taken from the rear, and you can see the canal, you can see Tolladine Bridge, and you can see the rear of the site. The 2002 extension is quite visibly seen at the rear. Some pictures taken by the applicants, so you can see the entrance in photo 1 coming off the island, and you can see the existing car park in photo 2. We then have the area leading towards the service area, and then photo 4 is the side of the area which is the scrubland and existing trees. This is looking down from the extension, which you can see in photo 5, and you can see the door to the extension, and then looking the other way from the extension as well. Just a couple of officer photos from the gate that leads down to the area of scrubland, and then from the road to the side you can see the area of scrubland which is unfenced at the moment and is unfortunately used for fly tipping. The north and the east boundaries are included within the original planning legal agreement, and I'll come on to that in a moment. Here shows the wildlife site, and you can see that wildlife site runs along the canal conservation area and also down the side of the building. So this is the original planning legal agreement for the wider Warndon development. And this agreement provided for the provision and the retention of major landscaping and nature corridors. And you can see on this plan, which has been helpfully, the existing property has been superimposed upon the Section 52 agreement plan, and it shows the proposal. The nature corridor is shown to the north and is cross-hatched. It's a little bit faded, but you can just see it to the north. And then the landscaping area within the Section 52 or the Section 106 agreement is shown as hatched. All of the areas are included within the green space, and I've just zoomed that slightly out so that you can see the connectivity of the green space within Warndon. What this application does is proposes an extension to the front, to the side and to the rear of the building, providing an additional 3,561 square metres, which is just under 38,500 square feet. And it provides additional warehousing space. The existing office and plant areas at first and second floor remain unaltered. And this will allow for the existing business to expand to meet customer needs, providing storage of approximately 15,000 pallets and an increase of approximately 15 additional jobs. The extension to the existing business premises within the existing employment area is wholly supported by the local development plan policy. The design of the extensions follow the existing steel frame portal building, replicating the existing parapet line so that the extensions will merge with the existing building. We'll just go through the elevations. So that is the west first, and this is the south elevation, east elevation, and obviously doing comparison top and bottom, and then the north elevation. The design matches the existing warehouse design and is considered to be an appropriate design solution given the location of the extensions, and which are screened through existing landscaping. And I thought it would be helpful just to show the existing landscaping. So this is looking along Wainwright Road. So the building is behind the tree screen to our right. This is looking from the entrance a little bit further back onto the island, and you can see the building behind, but also the tree screen to the right-hand side. This is looking the other way from the island towards the building, and again you can see hedge and tree planting. This is from the side road which leads into the caravan park. There is a little bit of a lack of landscaping, but that is perpetuated by the amount of fly tipping and the access into that area. The design of the extensions are considered to be wholly appropriate and in accordance with the design principles of the development plan and the design supplementary planning document. In respect to the location of the extension to the side of the building, these will extend into the green space and local wildlife corridor by approximately 472 square metres. The area is currently of low quality landscaping and it is of poor ecological value. The aerial photo does show the area of landscaping and the scrub. In addition to the business justification for the development, significant mitigation is proposed. This includes approximately 300% increase in scrub planting and replacement of poor category trees with high quality specimens, ecological enhancements, new wildflower planting and boundary treatment to prevent fly tipping onto Offerton Lane. So the first one shows the planting and the increase in the scrub planting and wildflower areas. And those are surrounding the property. I've got a plan in a moment which will show all of that in context. So although there will be some development on the green space in the wildlife corridor, it is fully compliant with SWDP 38.3, which does provide an acceptance of such development where replacement of green space is of at least equivalent value is provided. The creation of 1,430 square metres of native scrub habitat and the enhancement to the wildlife site provides an acceptable mitigation. And you can see that in context showing the wildflower meadows surrounding the buildings. You can see the additional scrub planting and other areas of enhancements. It is worth noting at this point that the extension will push into an area protected by the historic Warndon Legal Agreement, commonly known as the Section 52 Agreement. The requirements of this agreement in relation to this site were that the major landscaping and ecological area were to be provided and transferred to the council for maintenance. In the 35 years since the agreement, the landscaping has been provided initially, but has not subsequently been transferred to the council. Legal agreements can be varied to take into account of new circumstances where material planning consideration indicates that they should. The planning application proposal provides an opportunity to capture the new enhanced landscaping and the ecological benefits within this legal agreement for the benefit of the wider community to ensure that it is maintained beyond the normal 5-year period. Taking account of the nature of the land and its location, it is also considered that the legal requirement of the owner to maintain and manage is a preference rather than that of the council. On this basis, in accordance with Regulation 122 and Regulation 123 of the Community Infrastructure Levy Regulations, it is considered that to make the development acceptable, that the original legal agreement from 1988, with any subsequent amendments, are varied in accordance with the draft heads of terms set out within the appendix to the report. Members will note that in the late paper, the initial holding objection from Warndon Parish Council has been withdrawn. The additional space created will create an additional demand for car parking. The existing site has 66 car parking spaces, which are highlighted in yellow. It is proposed to increase that number of 66 to 108, which includes 8 accessible spaces. 14 of the total spaces will be available for electric charging, and also there will be 18 covered and secure cycle spaces will also be provided. And the additional spaces are highlighted in yellow, and the cycle spaces are highlighted in green. The total floor space for the unit following the extensions will be 13,841 square metres. The car parking provided creates an over-provision, and this is based upon the operator's knowledge of the requirements for their business and to address any current shortfall in spaces. The Highway Authority have considered this justification fully and find that the parking solution is fully acceptable and compliant with policy. Matters of heritage, impact on adjoining properties, drainage and sustainability are all fully considered within the report and have been found to be fully acceptable, with no objections being raised by consultees and being in accordance with development plan policy. The proposed extensions are suitably designed and provide an important economic expansion for the business, providing significant economic and social benefits to the wider community. Where there is some incursion into the existing poor quality landscaping and ecological area, this is fully mitigated and enhanced through the proposed landscaping and biodiversity enhancements, which will be secured through a varied legal agreement, providing a significant environmental benefit. The proposal is fully compliant with car parking, and it can be provided on site to accommodate the existing and the proposed workforce. The scheme is fully compliant with the development plan policies and can be supported. It is therefore recommended for delegated approval, subject to the varying of the original legal agreement and the conditions set out within section 9 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so we've got Mr. Renan Lee, and he's the agent for the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I fear I may be repeating some of what the gentleman has just said, but I'll run through this anyway. The application is for an extension to an industrial logistics unit to give the extra 3,561 square metres. This is a requirement of the occupier Transmec for their logistics buildings who base their business around volume to do with pallet sizes within the warehouse and accommodating pallets within the warehouse. This increase in capacity will then meet future orders and also as a consequence will cement their position on the site by them agreeing to sign a new lease for a 10-year period, which is important because they need that expansion in order to commit to that. The application, as you mentioned, has not been without challenges. You will be aware that we had an earlier application which was withdrawn. However, with the help of the occupier and the local authority, we've redesigned the scheme to arrive at a solution which we believe satisfies those earlier concerns, including the retention in its entirety of the northern buffer zone, whilst a small incursion into the green area to the side on the eastern elevation. All consultee comments have been addressed either by additional information provided or by condition. And whilst it's regrettable that this small area of green space is lost, the commitment to generally improve the landscaping and vastly enhance the ecological value of the site and the areas around it, we think is a considerable mitigation. The section 52 point raised during the planning process has also been addressed and we dealt with by variation to the legal agreement. We were pleased to receive the late papers from the Parish Council confirming that their objection was withdrawn. In summary, we believe we've addressed all the concerns and have a solution that enables an occupier to continue on the site for the further 10 years with the associate benefits to the community at large. We hope the committee will be able to approve the application subject to conditions and varying of the legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In very good time. I've got Councillor Riaz and Cross, but these are questions, please, for you, if that's okay. Is that what they are? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of how many extra jobs do you think this will create for the local economy, and also how many possible new lorry vehicle journeys within and on and off the site per year?
Thank you. The occupier is projecting a 10 to 15 person increase, which is, I think they're currently, including their all support staff, etc., is around about 60 people. But they think that in the next few years, with this extension and with the increase of volume within the building, then they will get to that level. I can't remember off the top of my head about the HGV movements. I don't think it was a huge increase, because a lot of the stuff goes in there and is held for a period of time and then distributed from there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us today. The challenges about fly tipping at Ofton Lane are long-standing, and your client will be thoroughly aware. Not really about setting a demand, but if your client is amenable to, it'd be encouraging if your client is amenable to helping to reduce the porosity or access beyond just a verge. That may help, and or additional CCTV support, etc. Just maintaining that perimeter, I think it's in their interest as well. The other question would purely be the provision of cycle spaces. If the client is amenable to increasing the provision of cycle spaces, as a local member, from a county perspective, I would certainly welcome that, and I'm sure many local residents would as well, because that cannot be obviously required, but it would be welcomed, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll certainly take that away, and if we can improve on that, then we will. I don't think it will be an issue.
Thank you. I'm sure local members would be willing to meet and discuss whatever would be helpful. Thank you.
Do I have any other questions for the speaker, please? Oh, Councillor Alcott.
Chair, thank you. So I think essentially that there's a movement of green space, isn't there? We're not actually losing any, but we are securing more employment for the area and a 10-year lease in a nutshell. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
That's correct.
Through you, Chair, just to clarify, I think what Councillor Alcott was confirming is that whilst there is some loss, there is some enhancement. So overall, there is no loss to the green space because there is equivalent. Actually, there's greater value in terms of the amount. So whilst there is an incursion in, which will cause a loss, what the proposal does is mitigate for that. It doesn't just replace it, it actually enhances that with a greater amount of space that's being provided. So overall, there is no loss to the green space.
Yeah, and in addition, the fencing will prevent the fly tipping, which will also enhance the green space that is there.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, please? Nope. Okay. Shall we move to questions for the officer now, the officers for highways or Paul, please? Councillor Cross and Councillor Bissett.
Thank you, Chair. Again, with a local hat on, the issue of unadopted land is significant and a regular and a long-standing problem in Warndon Parish, particularly that I'm aware of, and more of a. It's encouraging to see discussion on it and developments and attempts to address the problems that are part of it. I know it's not an easy one to resolve, but I am grateful for the efforts made thus far and look forward to us being able to move forward and resolve this, which provides a challenge for local residents, sometimes relating to tree management, etc., and fences. So, yeah, I long for when this is resolved and happily support efforts to do so.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bissett, please.
I just wanted to raise the subject of Ash Dieback. I'm concerned that if work is done to improve this green area, that there shouldn't be any risk that Ash Dieback is then going to filter in from adjoining green areas.
Through you, Chair, in terms of the conditions, in terms of landscaping, there will be a requirement to provide details of the trees that have been proposed. Quite a significant amount of work has been done already in terms of the landscaping, but that would be a requirement to be making sure that that's subject. We are very aware of the ash dieback issue, although it's not as great in Worcestershire as it is in other areas. We are aware of it and we are looking to make sure that species are provided in terms of planting schemes that won't be susceptible to that type of disease.
Yeah, and a further thing I wanted to highlight is that obviously with lots of trees already on the site, the protection of these trees during construction work is really important, and we have got a condition there about a pre-commencement meeting and agreeing with the landscape and tree officer about the protection and preventing damage to the trees, which I think is really important. Do I have any other comments? Councillor Riaz?
Thank you, Chair. I certainly welcome the proposal in terms of increasing a local business investing within the City of Worcester and obviously increasing job opportunities for potentially the local residents. The only concern really I have in terms of just if it does get approved and then in terms of execution than actually the development side and the construction element of it. Having worked on that industrial estate for 17 years, I know very well the problems in and around speeding, and obviously passenger safety, and obviously with the construction, the amount of construction that's going to be going on site, and that will displace some of the parking, at least for the construction phase. But that will add a lot of pressure on the local road network, and obviously in terms of the movement of people across the roads. So whether there's anything we could just to do to help to increase pedestrian safety during the construction phase, and is there a plan in place for the displaced parking to go elsewhere during that phase? That's the only real concerns. Obviously there will be an increase in obviously LGV and HGV vehicles in and out the city once the extra 15,000 pallets come in, but that's not an issue for this planning committee.
Yeah, well, sorry, I don't know if you've looked at condition 9, which is about the construction environmental management plan, which is all the temporary traffic management, the hours for delivery, parking areas, facilities, mitigation and impacts on residents. And that's going to be a plan which will have to come to officers first, yeah, and be approved. I think that is what would cover those issues, I think. Am I right?
Fine.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair, absolutely, that would cover that, and it is certainly something that we'll put a note on file to make sure that the details in terms of existing car parking is not displaced anywhere else as part of the construction phase. I think that's an important point, and I think we'll make sure that that's covered.
Fantastic, thank you.
Councillor De Serra.
So in terms of protecting the trees that are already on site during the construction work, can you just tell me what are the penalties that you would serve against an accidental tree knocking down, because it does happen?
Given the areas of where the trees are and located and to be retained, we've got robust conditions in terms of where they're going to be located. I can't imagine that we're in a position where that construction is going to be too close to the trees. We're not in a position where we've got a significant risk. So what are the penalties? Well, it would be a breach of condition. We would be looking at replanting of a particular tree. But in terms of the penalty, it's not like a tree preservation order where there would be a fine because of the loss. The whole point of the conditions that have been set out, and we put some robust conditions, and the whole point of the condition 5 is so that all that protection is in place in accordance with the British standard, and as long as that's the case, even if a dumper truck runs into the fencing, it won't cause any damage to the trees because it's designed to be able to maintain that tree protection.
Councillor Regal.
Thank you. I'd just like to suggest that included in the traffic management plan somewhere would be the idea that you don't use Offerton Lane, because the surface is absolutely atrocious and has been for 30 years. I mean, I used to cycle that lane, plus Wainwright Road and the towpath daily for about 30 years. And I know perfectly well just how bad it is and how bad the fly tipping is as well, by the way. So anything that can be done to mitigate either of those things is a good idea, but certainly you wouldn't want heavy lorries along that lane. It's just not suitable.
No. Yeah, agree. We agree. Okay. Any other comments, please? No? Oh, Councillor Amos.
Just a question, a comment really, Chair. I must say it's really nice to see a planning application providing lots and lots of lovely new jobs.
Absolutely.
Instead of cramming more and more rabbit hutch accommodation into the city. So I very much welcome this application, and I'll be happy to support it or propose it.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. I think I'm feeling quite a lot of positivity in the room, actually. You know, it's really great to have employment for local people. So, and I think you've clearly made lots of efforts to mitigate against the problems that this application had. Are you happy to propose, Councillor Amos?
I am, Chair, yes.
Okay, Councillor Alcott?
Chair, yeah, I'm happy to second.
Wonderful, thank you very much, that's great. So can we clarify what we are proposing and seconding?
So we are proposing that delegated authority to approve be given to the Corporate Director of Planning and Governance to grant planning permission subject to the signing of a deed of variation relating to the planning agreement for Warndon Development in accordance with the heads of terms in Appendix 1 and subject to the conditions set out within Section 9 of the report.
Yep. Okay, so all those in favour of the proposal, please. Wonderful, that's unanimous. So that is carried. Thank you. So do we have any other business? I'm not aware of any. Oh, do we? Oh, yeah, the site visit. Yes, go. Yes, we have. Yeah.
Members, just one matter of any other business. You'll remember in September we were going on our coach trip to look at various different sites in terms of planning decisions. That was cancelled due to a clash with full council at county and various other issues that we had, particularly the inclement weather at that time. We are looking at rearranging that, and Margaret has provided me with a couple of dates in February. So what I might be doing is sending out an email to clarify which would be the best date of those two. So please, can you just keep looking out in your emails before Christmas? I know it's quite difficult, but if you can, just keep an eye out so that we can get the most amount of members. And it doesn't have to be just members of planning committee. If you've got other members within your parties that are interested in attending and giving some input in terms of planning decisions, that might be helpful as well. But I'll send it out and then we'll get a date planned, get the coach booked, and then we can go along on our trips to be able to help us with our planning decisions. So it was just a note for that. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Paul. Councillor Amos?
With your permission, Chair, and grace, which I'm sure you will grant, can we just thank the Guildhall staff, the admin staff, because I think they're absolutely superb, absolutely reliable, friendly, helpful, super efficient. We've got Margaret Johnson speaking there and Rob in particular, but there are lots of others in the Guildhall who service this building and these committees so well throughout the year. I think it does need to be said and put on record.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Amos. I think that's unanimously agreed with. Right, so I'd like to wish everybody a very happy Christmas. We will have a meeting in January. It looks to be a very busy agenda, so and please put in your calendars that there may be a site visit at 1:30 already. There's probably going to be a site visit. Okay, thank you. Meeting is closed.